The city was cloaked in an eerie silence, the kind that settles before a storm. Detective Lawrence, known for his sharp instincts and relentless pursuit of the truth, was on a routine investigation of what initially appeared to be a simple murder case. The crime scene was located in a deserted alleyway. A young woman lay lifeless, her body contorted in what looked like a state of sheer terror. Next to her was a piece of paper, its surface marred with strange words written in what appeared to be blood-red ink. As Detective Lawrence picked up the paper, an unsettling chill crept up his spine, as if an unseen force had reached out to touch him. The words on the paper were incomprehensible, written in a language Detective Lawrence had never encountered before. Yet, there was something about them that compelled him to look deeper into this case, as though the paper itself was calling out to him. What began as a routine investigation was quickly becoming something far more sinister. Detective Lawrence began his investigation by speaking to the victim's family and neighbors. The young woman was described as ordinary, but in the days leading up to her death, she had been unusually anxious and frightened. Before Detective Lawrence could make significant progress, another murder rocked the city. This time, the victim was a prominent businessman. At the crime scene, Detective Lawrence found another piece of paper with the same blood-red ink and indecipherable writing. Convinced the two murders were connected, Detective Lawrence sought help from a linguistics expert to decode the mysterious writing. The expert revealed that the script was ancient, used centuries ago in occult rituals. It was believed to carry supernatural power, but its use came at a price. As Detective Lawrence delved deeper, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching him. Detective Lawrence's investigation led him to a historian who specialized in ancient rituals. The historian shared a chilling tale. Centuries ago, a group of sorcerers created a magical ink using forbidden rituals. The ink was made from human blood and other cursed ingredients. They believed that anything written with this ink would come true. But it demanded a sacrifice in return, a human life. According to legend, the ink had a dark, sentient spirit trapped within it, feeding off the desires and fears of those who used it. The more it was used, the stronger it became. It whispered promises of power and fulfillment to its users, but the cost was always deadly. Detective Lawrence left the historian's office with a growing sense of dread. This ink wasn't just an object. It was a living curse. Detective Lawrence's investigation took him into the city's upper echelons of power. He discovered that the victims were connected to influential figures, a politician, a wealthy entrepreneur, and a famous author. Digging deeper, Detective Lawrence uncovered documents linking these individuals to unethical and criminal activities. Each of them had used the ink to further their ambitions. They would write their desires with the ink, and in return, the ink demanded the life of someone close to them. At this point, Detective Lawrence met Marin, a courageous woman whose brother had died mysteriously under similar circumstances. Marin had been quietly investigating the same group for years. Together, they resolved to expose the truth and destroy the ink. However, their pursuit was not without danger. Detective Lawrence began receiving anonymous threats, warning him to abandon the case or face the consequences. Detective Lawrence and Maureen tracked down a reclusive man who claimed to have survived the ink's curse. He lived in an old, decrepit house on the outskirts of the city. The man shared his harrowing story, revealing that the ink was no ordinary object. It was alive, a malevolent force that ensnared its users by exploiting their deepest desires. Once someone used it, the ink never truly let them go. As the man spoke, the room grew colder. and a shadow seemed to creep across the walls. Suddenly, the house was plunged into chaos. Doors slammed shut on their own, the lights flickered violently, and an unearthly wail filled the air. Detective Lawrence and Maureen barely escaped with their lives, but the encounter left them shaken. It was clear now that the ink's power was far greater than they had imagined. Detective Lawrence and Maureen pieced together the connections between the murders and uncovered the existence of a secret society, a group of powerful individuals who shared the ink among themselves. They used it to eliminate rivals, amass wealth, and climb the social ladder. Attending a secret meeting disguised as members of the group, Detective Lawrence and Maureen witnessed the horrifying truth. The society performed ritualistic sacrifices to feed the ink's power. When their cover was blown, the two barely escaped the meeting, now more determined than ever to end the curse of the ink once and for all. Detective Lawrence and Maureen discovered that the ink could only be destroyed at the place of its creation, a forgotten underground chamber, where the sorcerers had first bound the spirit into the ink centuries ago. The chamber was hidden in a remote, desolate area. As they ventured inside, the air grew heavy, and the shadows seemed to move of their own accord. In the center of the chamber, they found an ancient altar where a vial of the cursed ink rested. The ink's guardian, a horrifying, otherworldly entity, emerged, blocking their path. It attacked Detective Lawrence and Maureen, forcing them to confront their deepest fears and regrets. Summoning all his courage, Detective Lawrence managed to retrieve the ink and throw it into a ceremonial fire that had been used in its creation. The flames roared to life, consuming the ink and the guardian with it. The chamber shook violently as the spirit was destroyed, its screams echoing into the void. Detective Lawrence and Maureen emerged from the chamber, battered and bruised but victorious. The murders stopped, and the cursed ink was no more. For Detective Lawrence, the case was more than just another investigation. It was a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the price of power. Maureen, too, found closure for her brother's death and resolved to continue fighting for justice. As they parted ways, Detective Lawrence couldn't help but feel a lingering unease. Though the ink was destroyed, he knew that human greed and the thirst for power could never truly be eradicated. The story ends with Detective Lawrence reflecting, "The greatest strength of humanity lies not in power, but in the courage to fight for what is right, no matter the cost."